to remember one thing, that all these are called as the indexes of a given array. So this is something called as index. This is a term used whenever we refer to arrays. So the arrays are accessed, or the elements of the arrays basically are accessed by using their indexes. So this is a 0th index, this is first one index, index 2, index 3 and index 4. So you have to remember what you mean by an index in an array. Alright, so moving on to the next thing. The next thing is how to access the given elements of an array. So how do you access the elements of an array? So the next subtopic is accessing array elements. Now what do you mean by accessing is that whenever we say we want to access a particular element in a given array, as in we want to find out at that particular location in our array which element is present, to print it or do a necessary operation on it. In that case we need to access the array elements. Okay, now you have to remember that arrays can be accessed and treated like variables in C, but very important is their index. You have to access the given array elements by using their indexes. All right, now the first way, suppose say you want to print the element of an array. Let's take the same array which we had previously created. So say the previously created array was this way, and say we want to print the element 2, or say the second element in this particular given array. So how do we do that? We have to write a printf statement because we want to print or get the value of the third element, or the second element in this particular array. So we write printf. The normal way of writing printf statement is this. yd, because the array is of the type integer, and the next thing is the name of the array, and very important is the index of the array which we want to access. So if we want to access the second element of the given array, we have to write, if we want to access the second element which is 20, we have to write the index 1, because this particular second element is present at this particular index. So how do we go about this particular statement is we write age and we write the index of the given array, and we close the printf statement in this manner, and we end it with a semicolon. Now this is how we would print the given element in an array. What do we do if we have to insert in the similar way, as in if we have to insert a value in a given array? So how do we go about? So for inserting we use the function called scanf, right? So how do we go about that? We have to write it the similar way, and we write the ampersand sign because for scanf we use the ampersand sign. Similarly we write the name of the array, and next we have to write the position at which we are inserting the array element, the index at which we are inserting the array element. So say let's say we want to insert at the index 4, in that case which is the 5th position, we are going to write 4 in the array index slot, and this is how we will end the scanf statement. So which means the element will be entered or will be stored at the 4th index, which is actually position 5 in the given array, because 4th index is actually position 5 since it starts from 0. So it is 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this is how we would go about the accessing of elements in an array. So it is simple. Only thing you have to remember is you have to access the array elements with an index. Going forward, let's take an example of one simple program of finding the sum of marks of say some students, say n number of students, using arrays. So how do we do that? Say this is a program, C program, to find the sum, of marks of n students. So we start with the header files first. Then comes your main. We start the body of the main. Say we have a variable, say I, then say n. Let's declare a array, say marks, and say let's put the size of the array as 70, assuming that there are 70 students in the given class. Next, let's have a sum variable. So sum, let's initialize it to 0 so that it does not take any garbage values. Now first of all, assuming that marks, there are maximum 70 students, but yet let's ask a question to the user: how many students in the class are present? So let's get the number of students from the user. So let's put a simple printf statement saying enter the number of students in the class. So to store the number of students, let's use a variable which is n. So scanf %d, because n is of the type integer, and ampersand n. This is how we write a scanf statement. Now we have got the number of students in the given class, which will be stored in this variable n. Alright, the maximum size of the array is 70, which means there can be maximum 70 students in the class, but it depends from each class to class. So depending on the number of students the user enters, that particular value will be stored in this variable n. So how do we actually take, now next we have to take the marks input from the user. So how do we take the marks input from the user? So first of all, this is the way we are going to write the simple statement of taking input, which is a scanf statement, by writing the index of the array. But now since we have many elements in the array, we cannot be writing this ways all the indexes to take the inputs. So therefore what we need to do is, we cannot write like this hundreds of scanf statements taking all the inputs, or say we suppose the number of students is 65, we cannot write 65 statements taking the input of the marks of the students. So therefore what do? Is we use loops. So basically we use for loops. We have learned for loops in the class, and we make use of a for loop so that this particular loop keeps on iterating till all the marks of the students are taken input from the user. So we write a for loop. Say the for loop variable is I, it is declared over here. So I is equal to 0, I goes till n, and we increment I, so we do I plus plus. Now inside this for loop we need to take the input of the marks of the students. So how do we take input? Same thing, we write the scanf statement. We write the scanf statement in this particular format. Similarly, %d and %h, but here we had given the index, say the 4th index. So here we are not going to do that, rather we are going to write the for loop variable, which means we are going to write I. So first time when this particular loop works, first time I will be 0. Next time when this loop works, it will be 1. I will take a value of 1. The next time I will take a value of 2. The next time I will take a value of 3. The next time I will take a value of 4. And it goes on till I reaches n. So if the value or the number of students entered by the user is 65, which means this particular loop will execute 65 times. So this is the way we are going to save the marks in the array marks. I made a mistake of writing age, so the name of the array is marks. So this is the way of storing the different values of marks in the given array. Now, since this particular program is to find the sum of marks of n students, how we are going to find the marks of n number of students? The similar way we have done previously using loops. So what we are going to do is write or use the sum variable which we have declared and initialized previously. So sum is equal to sum plus the variable marks, again by using the index which is I. So first time this particular when the value of I is 0, so the first marks of the first student will be summed up with sum which is initially 0. The second time the second student's marks will be summed up. The third time the third student's marks will be summed up. So by using this particular variable I, we can get all the marks of all the students. So if there are 65 students in the class, then we can get 65 marks of the different students by just using a simple for loop. So all we have to do is write a for loop, because the for loop keeps on incrementing every time. So the starting position is 0 and it goes on till it reaches n. So this particular n is the total number of students in the class. So this is how we are going to get the sum of the students. And what if we want to print the sum? We use a simple printf statement by writing, say, sum of marks is equal to %d, because it is of the type sum is of the type integer, and sum, and we write get ch, and this is how it is. Now remember one thing, this particular array marks will iterate till it reaches the maximum, which is n. Now n is a number entered by the user. It will not go till 70. 70 is the maximum size of the array, which means there can be maximum 70 elements, not more than that. So this particular size is the maximum size of a given array. So whenever we write this particular statement in the memory, basically we will have an array. We will have an array of this manner, starting with 0th position, 1, 2, and so on till it reaches 69, because this is 70, so it is size minus 1, which is 69. So it will start with a 0, 1, 2, and go on. So this is marks of 0, marks of 1, marks 2, marks 3, 4, 5, so on till it reaches marks 69. So you have to remember that it's very important to know the index whenever you have to access a given array. So in this case we are accessing the array called as marks, and for accessing that we are using this for loop. So what we are doing is we are taking input in the array and then finding the sum of the marks entered by the user. So let's just work out this particular program and see. So let's say the first time the user enters the number of students as, say, 58. So there are 58 students basically in the class. So suppose the user enters 58. Now n will take a value of 58 because the user has entered 58. Now the first time I will be 0. So first time when you are entering the marks of the first student. The first time you're going to enter it in marks 0. So suppose say the user enters the first student's marks as, say, out of 100, so say the student has got 70 or 80 suppose. So at the marks 0th position, 80 will be stored. Then you're going to sum it up with this particular variable. So initially sum is 0, right? You have initialized it to 0. We have initialized it to 0. So first time sum is 0. So that means sum will be 0 plus the marks in this particular place is 80. So 0 plus 80, you get 80. So this is your iteration 1. So this becomes your iteration 1. Let's go to iteration 2. So for iteration 2, what we're going to have is marks one. So marks 1, you, or basically say the first index, the index 1 rather. So at this particular position you will store the second student's marks, which will be, suppose say for example the user enters 75, so it will be 75. Now when you're summing up, you will sum it up in this manner. Sum equal to, previously sum value was 80, so it will be 80 plus this marks value, because it is sum plus marks. So marks of 1 is 75, so it will be 75. So when you total it up, you get 155. This will be your iteration 2. Next comes your iteration 3. So for iteration 3, this is used, this particular iteration 3 will be used for the third student's marks. So the third student's marks will be stored in the array marks and say the user enters 80 again. So the third student has also got 80 out of 100. So how do we find the sum? Similar way, the previously stored sum value was 155. The marks of the third student is 80, so it is sum plus the marks, right? So it will be 155, which is the previously stored value, plus the new marks entered, which is 80, and this will give you a total of 235. Now this is going to be your iteration 3. Now it will go on till you, this particular loop will go on till you reach the nth position, the nth value. Now what is the nth value? 58, which means you have to take 58 students marks and you have to add them up. So basically 58 times this particular loop will work. So this iterations will go on 58 times till you reach the end point, and that's when this particular loop will finish and then exit out. When you exit out, you just print the sum, the final sum, after adding the 58 students marks, and then that's it. You have the get ch and you end with your main, and you're done with the given program.